And we are live. JT here. Welcome to The Huddle. The Huddle is where I sit down with successful people from the world of sport and coaching. It's to learn more about their journey to greatness. Why do I have these conversations? Because success always leaves clues. I want to take a moment to thank you, whether you are joining us live as we stream into our Facebook community, whether you are watching the replay on Facebook or on YouTube, or whether you're listening to the audio on the podcast. Thank you so much for being here with me and my special guest today. And here's my reminder to you. The mind is like a parachute. It works best when it's wide open. So my challenge is to you is to go all in on this conversation. Remove any distractions and get laser focus on this conversation. And my guarantee to you is you will gain a valuable nugget of wisdom that will not only help you succeed in sports, but more importantly, in the game of life. I've been looking forward to my conversation with my special guest today. Before we hopped on, we were talking about how we've been doing our best to kind of create some alignment in our schedules to make this happen. And we were both mentioning how, again, that's the beauty of life. It's all divine timing. My guest in the huddle today is the associate head coach at St. Mary's University. He is, more importantly, just there's something about his energy that I really love. My guest in the huddle today is Tommy Kanichis. How are you, Tommy?
I'm doing very well, JT. Appreciate you having me on today. Been looking forward to this one for a while.
I'm sorry, brother. I just realized, again, blessed to have you on. I know I just butchered your name there.
Yeah, all good. Tommy Kanichis. Kanichis, yeah, all good. No stress. You're not the first or the last.
I can appreciate, as I was mentioning to you, I had about 18 pronunciations my first year at Western, so I can appreciate how you feel, brother.
Yeah, we all go through it. No stress at all. Appreciate you having me on, JT.
Hey, it's all good. One of the things before we get kicked off, brother, is I always remind myself to count my blessings. And one of the biggest blessings I feel that we can give to anyone in the game of life is giving someone our time and energy. So I just want to thank you again for being able to invest some of your time into energy into being here with me and our community today. And yeah, just thank you again from the bottom of my heart.
It's mutual. It's your time as well, and I appreciate it every minute of it.
Okay, so let's get kicked off here, pun intended.
Yeah.
One of the reminders that I often like to give people, and I often do it to myself, is that life is a game and games are supposed to be fun. So I'm curious, what is an interesting fact? I had a coaching colleague who once said, we all have our quirks. We all have these things that make us unique and different. What is an interesting fact, some may call it a quirk, that maybe a lot of people don't know about you that you'd be open to sharing with our community?
It's a great question. I would say, the first one that kind of comes to my mind if we're going to talk quirks is I'm usually a very calm, demeanored person. That's something that you find with me quite often. But when it comes to the game of football, the preparation of the game of football, on field and off field, I'm a very loud guy. That energy, once it comes time to get after it, once it comes time to develop, prepare, and get after the work, that calm demeanor disappears, and I'm a high energy, loud human being. I think my peers here in the office sometimes get a little tired of how loud I am, but I'm a big believer we got to bring the energy always. I would say that's kind of the quirk of mine. I'm a loud dude when it comes to the game and preparation.
It's interesting as you share that, and I love that. It's sort of that polarity, right? Of, having that calm and confidence, but then knowing when the whistle ball blows or when the ball gets snapped, it's time to get after it, right? It's time to go all in. And I think that speaks volumes to your background as an offensive lineman, right? Is again, this calm and cool demeanor, but as soon as the ball snapped, I'm getting after my man.
100%. It's, I've kind of learned, like you said, as an offensive lineman, getting into the world of business, now in the world of coaching, this business of sport, you got to be able to turn it on and off. you can't always be on, you can't always be off in this profession. There is no punch in and punch out, right? We are 24/7, 365. You got to be able to know when is the right time to bring that energy. When is it, we've only got so much to give on every day. Get to close your eyes at night, hopefully regenerate, but how much can you give back the next day? Only what's the reserve from the day prior. So you got to know when to turn it on and off. And I think being an offensive lineman, especially the way I like to play, which was aggressive, you got to be able to be polite when you're on the sideline with your teammates, and then aggressive and not so polite when you're on the football field.
Well, again, I love everything you're sharing. And what it reminds me here is like anyone that has played or coached at a high level sport understands that, right? That high performers, successful, highly effective people, they have the ambition, they have the drive, they have the coachability, the open-mindedness to get better. But again, it's being able to harness that, right? Because when unharnessed, that's where, from my lived experience, it's easy to fall into the hustle and grind mentality, where really it's about really creating that harmony in your life so you can give the next play your best effort and attitude.
Well, exactly. I think your proficiency disappears without self-awareness, right? And that's what it'll come. And that's a maturation process, right? That some hit earlier than others, some hit it right away, some don't until they're late in the workforce. But I think that self-awareness, again, understanding of you, your strengths, your weaknesses, when to give, when to pull away, is extremely important to long-term efficiency. And that's what we all aim for. Can you be consistent on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So I'm curious, again, you played, right, at a high level, right? You're a Carleton Ravens alum, and then you started your coaching career pretty quickly, right? Like you spent some time coaching in I couldn't remember if it's OVFL or transitioned to the OPFL at that time.
It was the OPFL at the time. Well, actually, I started coaching the OVFL. I was coaching there while I was playing, and then it transitioned to the OPFL.
And then you spent some time, right? You spent some time coaching at Waterloo with Coach Pretoria. And then, you've had this opportunity where, things have happened, right? Things have shifted for you quickly. Again, I understand that there's been a lot of reps and sets put in the background that not a lot of people see. So I'm curious, sport has played an important role for you in your life, first as an athlete, then as a coach. What is a life lesson you've received from sport that you still find yourself applying to your life today?
That's a great question, JT. I think there's tons of them, to be honest. Tons of them, but we could talk about time management. Proficiency is one aspect we talked about. Teamwork ethic, commitment, sacrifice, all those things kind of entail. But I think one of the largest things I've learned from sport actually came from injury. So as a competing athlete, once you get to the university level, it's a constant competition day to day. And once you get hit with a season-ending injury, I'm on my fourth ACL in my right knee at this point in my life. And, those injuries have taught me so much about sport that I wouldn't have understood without injury. What I kind of mean by that is like, how passionate are you about this? How much are you truly willing to sacrifice for this? How do you like it or do you love it? There's a large difference between the two. Are you willing to go the extra mile you never thought you would have to, right? To truly commit to this and grow. And I think the biggest lesson I would pull away from it all, is at the end of the day, you decide your own fate. Your perception is your reality. And if I perceive an injury to be this daunting, harmful piece that's occurred in my life, well, that's very quickly what it will become. If I see it as a challenge, a way to grow, a way to mature, a way to learn, a way to continue to celebrate my passion and sacrifice for the sport that I've been blessed to play, then it becomes that, and it's really, I would say my first time tearing my ACL, I was in my grade 12 year, going through the recruiting process, was getting a lot of attention, tore my ACL, a lot of the attention disappears, and it kind of forced me to reshape who I am, how I operate, and how I perceive every day's opportunity. Because you never know when it's going to get pulled away, and if things never go on the track that you expect it to, how do you bounce back? How do you kind of shift, rejig your plan to get back on track when you've been pulled off of it? So I'd say, that's probably the biggest thing. Perception is reality. Whatever you perceive yourself to be in your situation to be is what it will become.
I love everything you shared there. The reason is, we were talking earlier about this ability to harness that ambition, that drive, that open-mindedness to get better. And what I really heard from you here is the importance of flexing those mental muscles, right? And we have 6 of them, right? Those higher conscious faculties. You were talking a lot about perception, right? And what I love about that is it brings me back to that idea that the Chinese had a word for crises, right? And that if you take a look at one stroke of the pen, you see danger. But then I love how you always brought it back to what another stroke of it is the word opportunity. So I just love that, it's the same side of the coin. Like you said, any situation, any adversity, any obstacle, same side of the coin. It's which side of the coin are you looking at? Are you looking at the danger or are you looking at the opportunity?
Absolutely. And I think I love that. I like that analogy. I might steal that one from you, JT. That's what it comes down to. And the word opportunity, right? Do you perceive it to be an opportunity for growth? And it may be challenging. Do you see it as an opportunity to better yourself, an opportunity to become more self-aware? But do you see it as an opportunity? Do you perceive it as such? If you do, that's what it will become.
I love that. And again, it just comes back to, I love how you said it a number of times, just to highlight it, it's choice, right? It's a practice, right? It takes conscious effort to develop that practice, right? It's like any skill. So I'm curious, as I was just thinking, as you were describing your journey there, I think back to, your playing days at Carleton and then transitioning to Waterloo to coach and now at St. Mary's. It's been interesting, the parallels, because you have come into those programs at a time where the foundation was being set, right? Like the culture was changing and shifting back, right? Like Carleton, I still remember it. Like that's when the program got back up, was up and running. In Waterloo with Coach Burt and everyone else, that's where the program started to people take notice again. Now SMU, you're kind of in that same process here. So I'm curious, has that been a conscious effort for you to be sort of at the forefront and helping to create that foundation, to create this new culture? Or is it just by chance that you found yourself in these opportunities?
I think there's a little bit of mixture of both. At Carleton, it was definitely a conscious decision. Talking with the staff there, what the long-term plan was, the vision that they had. And again, it falls back to what I was saying, my grade 12 year, I tore my ACL. So I did a grade 13. If I didn't do the grade 13 year, with that opportunity of Carleton wouldn't have existed. I saw that again as whether you call it divine fate or whatever, however we want to look at it, but the opportunity to start something, put your stamp on it, have a long lasting impact, set the standard, begin to develop the culture. That's something that only can happen, the Carleton program can only happen once. Yep. Right. And I thought, this is an opportunity you can't pass up. And then, Waterloo was kind of a coincidence a little bit. I had prior relationship with Coach Bertoya, Coach Jarrell Adams, who's there as the DC and assistant head coach, has been a mentor of mine for a long time. Kind of offered me the opportunity to come join on in training camp as a guest coach. I was there for 4 days as a guest coach during training camp, and Coach Bertoya offered me an opportunity to stick around for the year. And it just ended up happening. We had some pretty special athletes, a pretty special coaching group, and we were able to kind of find a way to mesh and continue to build. So, I think the greatest lessons come from building. It's easy to walk into to get behind a Lamborghini and drive it as fast as you possibly can. But it's harder to stick to commit to putting it together, building it, and then reaping the reward of sitting in the driver's seat. St. Mary's was definitely a conscious decision. I was in a good place. I really enjoyed my time at Waterloo. I was learning a ton, great coaches, great athlete group, love the city. And the St. Mary's opportunity opened up in 2020. And, as a eager young coach, you're going to apply to it regardless, throw your name in the hat and see what kind of comes your way. But, once kind of going through the interview process, doing my homework, seeing the history of St. Mary's, understanding the city, the campus, seeing the ability that I think we have here to win, to develop. I'm a big believer in building something. I think that's important at any day. Life is never promised, right? And the impact that you make, I'm a big believer, whenever that day comes, people aren't going to talk about the dollars that you have in your bank account. They're going to talk about the impact that you've made in their life. And to me, being able to build something, and then get a player group to buy into building something, to me, that's special. And I saw that here, that opportunity at St. Mary's. Rich history, tons of success here in the past. been a ton of success recently as well, but there's time, it's time for a new era of SMU football, I think, which is clear to see right now. And, I'm lucky to be part of it. I'm excited to be part of it. I really, really am excited about what we're building here. And that's what it comes down to. My hope is whenever my day at St. Mary's is done, whether that's a year from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, that I left it a better place. And to me, that's what's most important.
You can definitely, like, I can feel and I can sense how much joy you get from creating anew, right? And as before we came on, I know we talked about this idea, and I love that you shared that idea, that it's really about this idea of like celebrating your past.
Yep.
And it's interesting, right? Like, it's easy to celebrate the parts of your past that are all that you perceive are sunshines and rainbows, but can you celebrate the parts like the adversity, the challenges, the obstacles?
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I find when you're able to truly celebrate all parts of the journey, because you start to realize that it is made you into the strong and powerful person you are, then you are able to focus on creating your future. Definitely. And that idea is something that, I stress, especially as we start to build here in Ontario, this idea of like, let's celebrate our past, and then let's create our future together. And I don't know, I know you get it, but there's something beautiful about that.
It's a beautiful thing. I think the ability to, you look at all stakeholders, internal and external, that play a role in, we'll talk St. Mary's specifically, but it's similar to you guys in Ontario right now, what you're building. There's so many people that are impacted by what you do internally and externally. There's, for us at St. Mary's, there's the fan base, there's the alum that see us from the optic view on the outside looking in. There's the internal people, our athletes, our administration, our coaches, the support staff that are internal on the day-to-day basis. And all of us have the opportunity to grow into something new and better because we're surrounded by that every single day. When you get to a stagnant point, if you're, does a stagnant program exist? Maybe. I don't know. There's 26 others. I can't speak on them. But what I do know is there's some programs that have been in the same position for a long time. And how much growth do those internal people have? How much growth do those external stakeholders have when there's no growth amongst the program, when there's no change amongst the program that you're invested in, that you're passionate about? So, yeah, I think, the ability to, I think that is the beauty, is that the impact you make on the program is truly the impact that's happening to the people within it and outside of it that have investment. And to me, it's, people is a motivating factor every day. Right? How can you make an impact in people's lives? And I think doing it through the program gives you the same benefit and reward as doing it on a one-on-one, face-to-face conversation. So yeah, maybe that is the beauty as we kind of sit here and think about it a little bit.
It's interesting, like hearing you sharing again your lived experience. One theme that keeps popping up that I keep hearing from you is this idea of like leaving others with the impression of increase, right? Like leaving things better than before you got there. And I always get this idea, like if you go into a room, this was something I would stress with our athletes is, no, you push the chairs in, you pick up any garbage, like you make life easier for the people that support us, like from that, if it's our custodial staff. Mm-hmm. And I find that when you get in that practice of leaving others with the impression of increase, something different happens, right? Like there's a different vibration, frequency, energy. So I'm curious from your perspective, it's obviously something you understand. Was there a particular coach, mentor, or like an experience where, you received that lesson from someone?
I think there was many mentors, from a young age. Again, the beauty of football, the game of life. I think there was a lot of people that played an impact in that. But in saying that, one of the things I'm learning as I'm continuing to get older and hopefully wiser, a few more gray hairs growing on my head, is at the end of the day, you can only take what you want. You can have the best mentors in the world, but unless you're willing to absorb and learn that information and grow within it, it doesn't matter, And so is there one person or one situation that occurred? No, none that really stick out to me. But I can say this, I am very, very lucky to be surrounded by some very, very good mentors, that all have different perspectives on life, the profession that we work within, the difference we can make, and all those different voices, all those different opinions, hearing them all, absorbing them, picking what I like and what I don't like. Some of the best lessons of life is what not to do or how not to think. Picking what you like, what you don't like, and combining it. I guess I've played that major impact on that for me.
Mm-hmm. I love everything you're sharing, right? It comes back to this idea that the mind's like a parachute, works best when it's wide
Yeah,
open.
100. I love that, by the way. I love that.
And it's interesting, like what you're talking about, and what I'm hearing from you is this idea of what is coaching and mentorship really, right? If you peel back it, I look at it as borrowing wisdom, right? And wisdom is just, to me, it's someone who's lived that experience, right? That someone who's doing exactly or is where you want to be. And it's interesting how borrowing wisdom, how much time, energy, and money that can save you, because it actually accelerates your results and gets you to where you want to go faster, which again is harnessing and doing things, to me, more efficiently. And
without a doubt. It comes down to, I think, what we talked about earlier, self-awareness. Are you aware enough to accept it? Can you remove the ego to learn? Right. And that's difficult, especially at a young age, extremely difficult to do, especially in a competitive atmosphere, extremely difficult to do the competitive atmosphere of sport, right? Where, especially again, we talk at the university level where Monday to Friday, you're competing for your job. The university level, the pro level, you're competing for your job consistently. How do you then remove your ego when your coach is holding you accountable for whatever mistakes you've had? And it comes down to me at the end of the day in trust and belief. Do I believe in this coach? Do I believe in this mentor? Do I trust them? Do they truly have my best, the best intentions for me? Do I truly believe that? If I do, my heart will open, my ego will disappear, and I'm willing to hear. If I don't, I'm going to shun you out, and so to me, to kind of switch us up a little, like, to me, it comes down to trust and respect as coaches and as athletes. I say to every young man I recruit and the guys that we have here, you're a person before you're a player. And I will always treat you as such. We sometimes in athletics, especially as a coach, that's what I do full time. Winning games is how we put food on the table. I think it all starts, I've got it written on my board in big highlighted letters, it's a program belongs to the players and it's a people business. And, it's a people business. How can we make an impact on the people? The result, winning, will be the outcome of us taking care of our people. Big believer in that.
I love the simplicity of that, right? That message of the importance of trust, right? And I love how you connected it back to this idea of opening your heart, right? Mm-hmm. And it's so interesting because, most people, if I say the word heart, they think of that physical heart that's pumping blood. But, whenever I share this idea of open up your heart, I'm talking about like that heart, the emotional mind, right? What the early Greeks referred to as the emotional mind, right? Like what is it that energizes you? It makes you feel enthused, what like that pregame kickoff fire in your belly, right? Like that's when you open up your heart to someone, or when you share what's really on your heart, it's amazing. Just I don't know, doing this for a living, it's amazing when that heart opens up.
Oh yeah, well, I think I'm again, as I continue to grow older, and I've really learned the importance of energy. And the energy you surround yourself with, the energy you give off, it comes in return. Yeah. And some people see that as like a legitimate, I've got to be high energy all the time. No, you got to be positive. You got to carry a positive vibration with you, and the same will come to you. And one of my favorite things about this profession is the 2-hour conversations I have with our athletes. They come in here to ask a simple question. The next thing you know, it's been 2 hours and we've just been talking about life. You do that, you spend that over 4 to 5 years. Like we spoke about earlier, you get a 17-year-old that by the time he leaves here, he's 22 years old. And, we've had countless hours of life conversations, countless hours of self-reflection, sometimes conversations that end in dispute, sometimes conversations that end in tears, happy tears or sad tears, or somewhere in the middle they happen. But at the end of the day, it comes down to, can you be open, honest, and like you said, open yourself. Your heart, your mind, your spirit. Can you open it? Are you willing to absorb that energy from somebody else and then give it back in the same vibration?
Mm-hmm. We're of like mind there.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, we've come out of an interesting last 2.5 years, right? It's just been an interesting time, and everyone's experience has been different throughout this. So I'm curious, from your experience, how important has it been to put people first as we've transitioned out of this last 2.5 years, and really like looking at the person and really building those bridges of trust so that they can actually open their heart? Like, how important has that been?
Yeah, I think now more than ever, to be honest. We've got, again, looking from a business standpoint, optically, like we've we've got a group of athletes, a young group of athletes that have joined us, some of which haven't played a game in 2 years, some of which haven't been able to pursue their passion for 2.5 years, a year, and are just starting to get back into it. And look at you wide-eyed, look at you with puppy eyes, asking you, what's next? Where do I go from here? They haven't been able to have a sense of normalcy over the past couple of years. And once you're in that leadership role, which coaching is, which mentoring is, you're in that position of leadership. It's, to me, it's the ultimate sacrifice, and we sacrifice for the people in which we are leading. And I believe in servant leadership, and taking care of our people has always been important, but now so more than ever, because I think we're trying to figure out what the new normal is. The new normal, normal, in my opinion, normal doesn't exist. Normal is perception based. But I think being here for our athletes, being here for our people in general, our coaches, our athlete support staff, is important now more than ever, because I think a lot of people are looking for, what is my new foundation? What is the new path forward? Because it has to be new, it has to be different. Which again is, you can perceive it as scary and daunting, or exciting and challenging, right? And to me, I see it as exciting and challenging. So to sum it up, I think it's more important now than ever to take care of our people and truly be there as a guide for them as they continue to grow.
Yeah.
And vice versa. They do the same for us as coaches. I can tell you that. I learn from my guys every single day.
Well, and it's interesting. And what I really heard from you again, as you were sharing that, was, the blessing of the last 2.5 years is it's taught us how much we as humans crave human connection. We need it in order to really thrive in life, right? And as much as this is great, technology has given us the ability to have this conversation across multiple time zones, there still is something different though, right? About human to human, face to face connection. And, we need that. And when you do that, when you give people opportunities to do that, I feel it's actually easier to create those bridges of trust and actually find out what it actually is on people's hearts.
100%. Most of conversation isn't even the words that we're saying. It's the tone in which we say it. It's the body language in which we give off. It's all the subconscious cues that are actually inviting and welcoming to somebody or not. Right. And again, having that in person is more important than ever. And again, when we talk about energies and vibrations, again, I feel they're very real. You can only really feel that when you're with someone. You can get it a little bit, through the Zoom and that kind of thing, but you can't really feel someone's energy. You can't really see their body language, properly hear their tone, see if they're comfortable, uncomfortable, where you can push, where you can pry, where you can pull over technology. It's only in person, and I think the only way to help someone grow is to challenge them consistently.
Yeah. And again, a great reminder, and what I often sort of stress to people is, you're always, like you said, you're always making people feel something, whether consciously or unconsciously. Mm-hmm. And people can sense if you're truly, laser focused on them, or whether you're sitting there on your phone multitasking, or whether you're just waiting for a pause in the conversation to, give your 2 cents. And it's amazing when you start to become more aware and you start to give people your heart. It's funny how they'll start to give you their heart. And then that's where I think true human connection really takes place.
Without a doubt. I think, for us, if I look at us as a program right now at St. Mary's, like we talked about building a new foundation, setting a new standard, a new path forward. There's going to be challenges, right? I've learned failure is a beautiful thing. I love it because it's growth, but not everybody feels that way about it. You got to go through a lot of failure and growth to recognize that. And again, this period in a lot of people's lives is the universities where a lot of people realize that and go through those ups and downs. And I think, to fail for a 17, 18-year-old young man or woman, who's playing the game of football and you fail at it, it's the hardest thing you can do as a competitor, right? Do you trust? Do you believe? Do you have that true connection with the mentor, with the leader in front of you that's telling you to keep going? Because if you do, you will. If you don't, you'll call it quits, right? Whether that's the coach or whether that's a mentor at home, text away an aunt, an uncle, a cousin, a brother, a sister, whatever it may be, whoever that leader in your life is. If you don't have that true connection, you'll never stick to it until you've built that self-awareness of failure is a beautiful thing. And we'll put it like this, when I speak with recruits, when I speak with our athletes here, I've never met a young man who's transferred from university to university playing football because he didn't like the field. He didn't like the weight room. He didn't like the locker room. You transfer because you don't feel trust, you don't feel love, you feel you rely to. And I was having a conversation with some coaches earlier this morning actually about how excited I am to be back on the road recruiting and actually sit down and have break bread with families. And if I'm coming to recruit your kid, I'm stealing them for the next 4 to 5 years, right? You got to know who I am. Yeah. What's motivating me? What's driving me? Because I'm going to be the guy who's picking your kid up when they're at their lowest, and I'm going to be the guy pulling your kid down when he's a little too high, right? So, do you really get to feel and understand what my motivating factors are as a coach, as the leader, that as a person who's supposed to be the leader for your child through this massive growth period? And to me, that's huge. It all comes down to trust in everything you do as coworkers, as family members, as friends, as coach, athlete relationships, and everything, mentor, mentee relationships. It all comes down to trust and transparency, I believe.
You bring up a great idea. And what I really heard from you is, I think back to really what is the word empowerment, right? Because that sort of came up, right? Like that, I feel like that's been an underlying theme of our conversation. So what is empowerment? It's like giving people their power back, right? And I think I'm always about like, let's peel the layers of the onion back, right? And how do you actually pour your power and give someone their power back? It's by creating that belief that better is possible for them. And again, that's something, belief, right? It's not something you can feel. It's not something you can touch. It's not something you can see. But again, it's not something you can use with your physical senses. But it's amazing that when you pour your belief of a greater tomorrow into the people you're leading, it's amazing how they start to build trust in themselves.
Without a doubt.
So I'm curious from your perspective, that belief piece, how important is that belief piece from your lived experience of a greater tomorrow?
It's massive. I think it's a massive part of why I am where I am, what I've been able to achieve, and what I intend to achieve as I continue to grow. I think you will always have people. Everybody does the haters. I can quote it. Everybody has them. Everybody's going to have that friend who's beside you that's telling you you're going to do great and then goes behind the door and says awful things about you. That happens in everybody's life. It's an internal belief. Do you have that internal belief? And sometimes it has to be someone that puts it within you. Sometimes you just have it. It's a confidence. There's a bunch of pieces that fall into it. But, for me, I know ambitious goals. It was my goal. I started coaching at 21. When I was coaching University of Waterloo, I was 21 years old. There was guys on that roster that were older than I was. And I had to believe, that one, they're going to respect what I know, right? How I teach, how I communicate. But at the same time, I also got to believe that it's going to take some time to get to that point. Be willing to put in sacrifice. And if you do, the belief will tell you it will come, right? When I got hired here at St. Mary's, I was 25 years old as an offensive coordinator. There was guys on the roster that were still older than I was. And, that was, again, first time coordinating at this level. I've got guys younger than or older than me on roster. How are they going to take to that? And, it's a belief of, okay, I've studied, I've prepped, I've put in the work, I've put in the time. And as long as I'm honest, open, transparent, I show my knowledge, I communicate it well, the rest will follow. And, right now we're in a position here where we've got the best retention rate we've ever had. Our recruiting classes have been phenomenal over the past couple of years because we do have a belief. Our athletes that are here, athletes that are coming in have a belief because I think as a program, we've been extremely transparent and honest in who we are and where we're going. To sum it up, it's played a massive part for ACLs. I'll give you a direct example. My second year was my second time tearing my ACL, my second year of university football. 3 days into training camp, I had just dropped 60 pounds. I was feeling great. Trained my butt off for 10 months leading up to that off season, going for a starting spot, lock it down. 3 days into training camp, I tear my ACL and break my tibia. And my coach at the time says to me, okay, Tommy, I've got two options for you. Option A is you hang up the cleats, you come and join the coaching staff as a grad assistant, you grow, you learn, and then wherever the future takes you, it takes you. Or you take the next 10 months, train your butt off, right? Try to get back at football. No promises. You might start, you might be backup, I might cut you, right? Where you land is where you land, but make your decision. He said, take 7 days, think on it. Let me know what you'd like to do. And that was a big moment for me. I knew I wanted to coach. I knew it's always something I wanted to do when I was done playing, but I had belief I wasn't done yet as a player, so I did my time, I paid my dues, I worked my tail off. And that first exhibition game, going into my third year, I'll never forget the feeling of walking onto the football field. Pre-game, I do a prayer, I get in my zone, whatever, we play our game. And right after the game, I was just overcome with emotions of, because I stuck to that belief in myself, the commitment to myself, a second ACL tear, a broken tibia bone where I was sitting on the couch for 6 weeks, not allowed to get off of it. That was the first time, well, not the first time, one of the first times that's really impacted me and stuck with me, that's saying, regardless of any challenge, of any failure, it's an opportunity for growth as long as you continue to believe in yourself. So yeah, belief to me is everything. Belief is a confidence. It's a work ethic. It's, there's awareness. Again, there's so many things that fall into it, but to me, belief is massive.
I appreciate you, and I acknowledge you for opening up your heart here, with me in our community. And, what I really heard from you was, again, my mind always goes back to, again, study not what successful people do, study how they think. And what I really heard from you, again, was this idea of you gave yourself this opportunity to be clear on what you wanted, right? Was I clear on going down the coaching route, or did I want to get back on the field? So the first question you had to do was ask yourself, a tough question, right? And challenge yourself. And then from that clarity, what I heard from you is then you consistently put in the reps and sets, right? In the weight room, right? I'm sure with your nutrition, with your rehab, with everything, to get your mind, your spirit, your mind and body, in harmony. And then from there, with each day you did that consistency created a sense of confidence. And I look at confidence as it's belief, right? Like confidence to me is belief when the chips are down, right? Where there's nothing in your immediate surroundings that gives you that you're on the right track. And then from there, that confidence creates champions, right? So again, I love this is the idea of you following kind of this playbook of clarity creates consistency, consistency creates confidence, confidence creates champions. Like, again, great playbook.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully we can all stick to that, and hopefully we're all at the end of it, right? It's the beauty of it is, life is always changing. It's divine timing, kind of like we talked about, right? Life is always changing. Are you willing to adapt? And like you said, maintain that belief, maintain that confidence. If you do, you can overcome anything. And there's something I wanted to, success is a word that so I'm going to ask you a question, JT, actually, if you're with that, what do you measure success as? What do you see when you talk about success? What is success?
Yeah. I always like it back to the Earl Nightingale quote that a great mentor of mine shared with me. And it's this idea of success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal or goal. And the key word is there, a couple keywords, progressive. So it's an ongoing journey. Like if I'm coming to visit you at St. Mary's, I know I need to continue to hit the towns at the east and the cities to get to you.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of worthy, because the goal has to be something that touches your heart, that deep subconscious, that has to be relevant and meaningful to you. Yeah. So that to me is success.
Love it. It's introspective. Success is different for every single person, and I love that. I think that's awesome. It's something we're always hunting for. Some people think it's money. Some people think it's just happiness. And I don't argue that. Happiness is its own measure of success, its own level of success. Yeah. But I do believe there is levels to it, and it's progressive. It's consistently growing and changing. I think that was extremely well said.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, brother. Yeah. So I'm curious. Again, you spent most of your life in Ontario, and then you decided to head out east. So here's a question. I feel like the safe and comfortable road most of the time is to, most people, if you take a look at statistically, stay within like something, I think 50 miles of where they were born and where they grew up. What has been the benefit of you going out east, or, let's take this from a recruiting lens. What would be the benefit of someone moving away from home and experiencing life, in a different environment?
I think growth, right? Growth is what it comes down to. It's again, I'm from the GTA region, went to Carleton, about 5 hours away, far enough where you're not going to get surprise visits knocking on the door, but close enough where you can still get home if need be. And, I was 18 years old. I left at 17. I was 18 years old when I broke my tibia and tore my ACL, young age. And overcoming those challenges, the growth that occurred has now at this point in my life, I never want to be comfortable. I've learned to dislike comfort. I truly have, and it drives my partner nuts, but she's learning to deal with it. I hate being stagnant. I can't stand it. My biggest fear is being comfortable, because I've become so addicted to growth. And so, yeah, I think, moving away, taking that risk, diving in, it's something I talk about with recruits all the time. It's going to force you to grow. And that experience that you're going to have, you cannot get anywhere else, right? We can talk about the city and all the Halifax, all the great pieces about it, the university itself, academically, socially, all the great pieces that are within it. But just to know that you're going into a different culture. The East Coast culture is definitely very different than that in Ontario. Everything you hear is true. Is definitely something I can say. It's a different culture. It's a different perspective on life. You got to build a new network. You've got to meet new people. Are you willing to make yourself uncomfortable enough, knowing that whether you leave a year later, 10 years later, or you never leave, you're going to be a different person. And again, your perception will shape the person that you become. Your belief will shape the person you become when those challenges come at you. So I think it comes down to growth at the end of the day. That's why the ability to grow, to do something different, to not be comfortable.
Yeah. I love that you're sharing like the simplicity of that, I think what some people fail to recognize is this idea, like growth is embedded into our DNA. Like if you think back to when we were cavemen, cave women, like it was advantageous for us to want to grow it and gain skills because it was simply a matter of survival, where now we have the conscious choice to actually, it's not, and again, I'm respectful of being everyone's unique lived experience. We all have the opportunity to go from survival mode to thrive mode.
Yeah.
Right. And I think for myself, being in a place where I felt like I was in survival mode for a number of reasons in my personal life, I know that now that I've known, like you said, how energizing and growth can be, I'm not willing to go back, because what am I going back to? Exactly.
Comfort is easy, and that's okay for some. And there's no judgment passed on that. Zero. If that's the life that you feel is best for you, that brings you the most success, whatever your measure of success is, that brings you the most happiness, whatever your measure of happiness is, then so be it. But I know for the type of person I am, and the type of person that I think a lot of competitive athletes are, competitive entrepreneurs, competitive people in general, I don't think that comfort, the regular wake up and same routine on the day-to-day basis is for them. Again, I know for me, it never has been, never will be. I get questioned on it on a daily as to why do I choose this profession and why do I go in the office at 6 a.m. and leave at midnight? Because I love what I do. And I love what I do because every day is different. Every day is challenging. Every day is an opportunity for growth. And it's something we spoke on earlier. You never know when your clock stops ticking. Mm-hmm. How much growth have you had in that? How much of an impact have you had in that? And how many life experiences have you lived? Mundane routine, your life experience is limited. Can you expand upon it?
It's interesting. You asked me a few minutes ago about this idea of success. I love, even that simple question of, you just articulate so well. Success is spending your days doing what you love. And I know it's really easy to say, but like you said, can you live it? Can you breathe it? Can you be it? Mm-hmm. And when you do that, it's amazing how much lighter life feels, right? Like how much just the things you start to look at shift, and then life starts to feel lighter. And then I almost feel then you feel, and then you're truly being enlightened.
Without a doubt. Yeah. It's again, that challenge. Are you willing to be, and being uncomfortable, it has this, people see it as this daunting, scary thing, but it really, once you become comfortable with it, be comfortable being uncomfortable. Once you learn that, I think the everyday tasks, everyday challenges excite you, like you said, and it's actually the daunting task of having a conversation, a tough conversation you might not want to have with a young man or young woman about their future in the sport, a conversation you might not want to have about someone's academic situation. about the recruitment process. Those are uncomfortable things, but how can you make that uncomfortable situation better for you and the other that's with you? I think that's what it all comes down to, is like how well can you adapt to the challenges that make you uncomfortable? Can you overcome the lack of comfort by then flipping the whole script on its head, turning it upside down, and making that uncomfortable comfortable for someone else and a growth for someone else? I think you know in this profession, what you do as well, you have the opportunity to do that every day, and that to me, that's success, right? That's what you and I spoke about earlier. Football to me is a platform for the development of people. It's the game of life, you know, and I know that if I wasn't coaching football, I'd be doing something else, whether it be teaching or something where I could be around people on a daily basis to help them grow and develop. You know, I'm just blessed that football is the platform I get to use on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm. I love the words you use, right? And I'm very aware of like words people use, right? Like I love that you talked about opportunity, you know, the power of perception, blessed. Like it's interesting how when we use more empowering words in your life, how the quality of your life shifts, right? Because again, it's that simple conscious tweak, right? Which then becomes a habit where it's just, you can see what people's perspective on. And so what I'm just trying to share with you is I want to acknowledge you for that, because it shows me that you not only talk about it, but you truly live and embody those qualities.
I appreciate that. I pride myself on it, to be honest with you, JT. It's something, I'm a big believer, again, servant leadership. I'm a big believer that can't ask you to do it if I'm not willing to do it myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to be the best version of me that I can possibly be for those that I have the opportunity to lead.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have to be. It's to me, it's a non-negotiable. I've been blessed with great mentorship in my life. I have the opportunity to be that for somebody else, or hopefully many. I have to be at my best, you know, and I've learned the power of the subconscious mind a little bit, and you know how strong it really is and how much it truly impacts us on the day to day. And it's exactly what you said. Your wordplay matters a lot to the subconscious mind.
And I think you've shared from that, again, truly spoken like a true servant-based leader. Like great leaders are only preach what they are willing to consistently practice. And what I would share with people, it doesn't mean you get it right 100% of the time, right? It's the illusion of perfection, but it's understanding, again, that it's a daily practice. It's just, what are your consistent thoughts and actions? And when you can sort of mirror those consistent thoughts and that great, you know, consistently great thought with great action, the great results are the byproduct, and the results just show up in your life.
Exactly. The outcome, the outcome of success, the outcome of winning a game, the outcome of the perfect experience is all the small pieces that lead to it. We always get caught in the outcome. We always, you know, that's our focus point for a lot of us, but it's the marathon that leads to that outcome that's actually important. It leaves the largest impact as we continue to go.
Definitely. Okay, brother. So I want to be respectful of your time and energy. I know that you're going to be hot on the recruiting trail.
Yeah.
You're coming to this part of the country. So I'm curious, you know, like you said before, like you're a dreamer, right? Like you have a big vision of what you want to see happen in your life for the people that you're effectively leading. You know, what would you like to see happen, you know, moving forward in your life, whether just speaking with you professionally or, you know, whether it's for the people that you're leading? Like, what do you envision?
Question. Well, I think it falls into we could put in multiple buckets, right? There's the professional ambitions in your career. There's the personal ambitions in your own personal life, socially, your relationships, right? And then I think there's the bucket of leadership. What do you want for the people that you have an impact on? And I think if we kind of separate it, you know, as professionally, career-wise, I've got some ambitious goals in terms of, you know, I've hit some pretty good landmarks already that I'm proud of at a fairly young age, you know, and I think the next step for me, you know, as in this profession is head coaching, and I'm ambitious to achieve that. I know there's a lot that goes into it, you know, and I'm excited to put the work in to achieve that at some point. You know, in terms of relationships and the people, I'm very lucky to be in a long-term relationship with a very special person who somehow puts up with me on a day-to-day basis. You know, and I think as long as I can continue to grow and be the best for her, for my family, those people that I'm close with, my friends, and just be the, you know, I'm someone who always speaks from the heart. I don't know any other way. It's always how I've been. You know, as long as I continue to do that, I'm happy. in that spectrum of my life. And then in terms of the people I get to lead on a day-to-day basis, the people that look to me as a mentor, I need to make sure that I'm consistently growing. I'm consistently challenging myself to do the same for them. And I would say that hopefully that kind of sums it up for you and answers your question.
Yeah, it's interesting. What I really heard from you, again, if I had to sort of harvest a theme from there, was this idea of Harry Truman, the former US president, used to have this sign that says, "The buck stops here." And why that resonated with me is like, you're just someone who takes great pride in taking responsibility of the direction of his life. So I just want to acknowledge you for that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think, like I said, I think we decide our own fate. Our work ethic, our attitude, our approach, our perception, our confidence, our belief, our self-awareness. I think all those things lead to who we become.
Yeah.
You can be whoever you want. You just got to work for it and believe that you can do it.
So I'm curious, brother, if anyone is resonating with what you're saying, or, they want to reach out, they want to learn more about, the amazing experience they could get at St. Mary's, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
I'm on social media. Twitter, Instagram is probably best. It's just my name. So you can see it straight off the stream here. It's just at Tommy Kanichis. You'll be able to find me there. And I'm quite diligent on responding to messages. Sometimes might take a couple days. There's quite a few in there, but always happy to have a conversation with anybody.
Definitely. And I'll be happy to share everything out in the show
Please
notes, whether on Facebook, YouTube, the podcast, and we'll be sure, because I'm sure you definitely pique some people's interest there.
Yeah, awesome.
So brother, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge you. I want to acknowledge you for the man you are, the significant other you are, the great son, teacher, coach, mentor, but more importantly, the amazing human being you are. The one thing that's really resonated for me from this conversation is just how open you are to growth. Like, there's this humbleness about you, but there's this hunger to become a stronger, more powerful version of yourself, which again is always that sort of that harmony. So again, you embody that beautifully, brother. So I just want to again acknowledge you for that.
Thank you very much, JT. I appreciate that. It's been a pleasure. I've been watching these for a while. I'm excited to get on board. Like I told you, I love what you're doing, JT. You're making an impact on a lot of people. Continue to do what you do. And again, I appreciate the kind words and you having me on today.
Yeah, no worries. So folks, here is my reminder to you. Coach dropped so many valuable nuggets of wisdom that will not only help you succeed as an athlete, but more importantly, in the game of life. So my challenge to you is to take one of these valuable nuggets of wisdom and go apply it to your life today. As I remind you every week in the huddle, knowledge is potential power. It's the consistent and focused application of great knowledge that actually creates great results. And as I remind you every week in the huddle, you are deserving of greatness. You are worthy of greatness. You are greatness. And my only ask from these conversations is, if it resonates with you and it's touched your heart, please share it with a friend, a loved one. The reason being, the more people that we have understanding, living by these simple ideas, the more greatness we can spread in this world. As always, I feel blessed for you spending part of your day being here with me and Coach today. Have a blessed rest of your day, and I'll see you next time in the huddle.